Welcome, everyone. Today we're diving into some intriguing perspectives about making Russia an enemy, as discussed by Dmitry Polyansky, the first deputy permanent representative of Russia to the UN.
Right, and it's pretty interesting how he argues that while Europe has firmly taken Russia as an enemy, there's still room to improve relations with the US. Isn't that fascinating?
Absolutely. It's like he's saying Europe's positioning, especially with Germany being a significant concern, might be a strategic misstep. He implies
Yep.
that while the US might still hold potential for diplomatic connection, Europe's stance is hardened.
And that definitely raises the question, why would Europe, and Germany in particular, choose to ostracize Russia instead of possibly engaging in dialogue?
Exactly. It's almost as if he suggests that isolating Russia could lead to long term geopolitical instability. You know, it reminds me of when you burn bridges rather than building open channels for communication.
Right, I mean, isolation might seem like a safe policy in the short run, but there's always the risk of miscalculation and unintended consequences, wouldn't you say?
For sure. Dmitry Polyansky is essentially highlighting that, while making Russia an outright enemy might backfire in the end. It's like locking yourself in a corner, hoping someone else changes their tune.
Yeah. So his argument leans on the idea that diplomatic reconciliation, particularly with the US, is still in play, but Europe seems to have already decided against it. How do you see that playing out?
It's quite compelling, really. He basically hints that the US remains a potential partner for engagement, while critical European players, especially Germany, have taken an adversarial stance. It's almost like there are two different diplomatic strategies coexisting.
Right. And do you think there might be an underlying reason why Europe, and Germany in particular, feel so strongly against Russia?
Well, yeah, there are historical, political, and economic complexities at play. It might be a combination of lingering Cold War sentiments, recent conflicts, and a broader narrative pushed by certain political groups.
That's true. I mean, if you look at Europe's security policies, they often lean towards caution and sometimes even deterrence. So there's a sort of internal conflict between potential engagement and perceived security risks.
Exactly. And Polyansky points out that this hardline approach may be short sighted. It's like ignoring the possibility that dialogue can actually lead to a more secure international environment.
Yeah. I'm curious though, don't you think there's some validity in being cautious? I mean, there are risks involved in engaging too readily with a state that might have conflicting agendas.
That's a fair challenge. I mean, caution is necessary in international relations, but Polyansky argues that the current path might be more of a strategic mistake. It's like choosing between a rigid, no contact policy versus a more nuanced engagement strategy that could potentially reduce tensions over time.
Right, exactly. So, in his view, aligning with the US on diplomatic fronts could be a way to mitigate the risks associated with Europe's isolated stance. Is that it?
Yes, precisely. He seems to imply that while Europe has already boxed Russia into an enemy role, the US still leaves the door open for collaboration, suggesting that a multifaceted approach could be more beneficial for international stability.
And it's interesting because it touches on how regional alliances can sometimes lead to polarization rather than promoting dialogue. It's like when you have two teams in a sports game, but sometimes the game gets too heated and you forget that playing together might actually create better outcomes.
Absolutely. That's a great analogy. It's like if you keep playing hard defense without considering surprising moves, you might end up, with a stalemate that nobody wins.
Exactly. Polyansky's perspective really challenges the prevailing narrative in Europe. Do you think his position might change the way diplomatic policies are considered in the near future?
It's possible. His statements serve as a counterbalance, urging policymakers to reconsider that binary choice. Instead of labeling Russia outright as an enemy, he suggests exploring the diplomatic gray areas that might foster actual exchange and potentially cooperation where it matters most.
Yeah, no doubt. But then, there's always the counter argument that if you engage too leniently, you might inadvertently reward aggressive behavior. How do we balance that concern?
That's where it gets really tricky. It's about finding equilibrium, balancing firm principles with the flexibility needed for dialogue. Polyansky seems to advocate for careful diplomacy that doesn't completely hand over leverage to the adversary while still remaining open to engagement with the US as a counterweight to Europe's rigid positions.
Yeah, and it sounds like he's urging Europe, particularly policy influencers in countries like Germany, to rethink their approach. It's a strategic call to avoid creating more enemies than allies.
Definitely. And his idea is not just theoretical, he's speaking from a position of diplomatic experience, which gives his words more weight in the ongoing global debates.
That's true. It makes you wonder if both sides, the US and Europe, truly aligned their strategies. Could it perhaps lead to a more efficient resolution of lingering conflicts?
Exactly. And that's the core of his argument. It's about strategic missteps, a sort of warning against the dangers of a one sided, enemy labeling approach that might only deepen divisions rather than resolve underlying issues.
Right, definitely. And there's an element of realism here. The world isn't black and white. There are nuances and shades of grey that dominate international relations, and his perspective invites us to embrace that complexity.
Yes, absolutely. It's like resisting the urge to reduce complex geopolitical relationships to simple good versus evil narratives. Polyansky's remarks imply that such oversimplification can actually be a strategic error in today's intricate global landscape.
Exactly. And by opening the door for improved US Russia relations, he suggests that there might be alternative paths to reducing tensions, right?
Precisely. The idea being that instead of deepening divides in every corner, you could work on building bridges where there's still potential, especially with the US, which might act as a mediator or at least a balancing force.
That's an interesting angle. I also find it noteworthy how his position might serve as a reminder to policymakers to avoid getting trapped in an adversarial mindset that could escalate conflicts unnecessarily.
For sure, it's like a wake up call. Instead of relentlessly pursuing an us versus them policy, there's room for recalibration, finding common ground where dialogue is still possible and perhaps more productive in the long term.
Right, exactly. But then again, some might argue that this approach risks undermining a firm stance against questionable policies or actions. How do you see that tension playing out?
That's where the debate deepens. While a strong stance is necessary to protect interests and deter aggression, Polyansky seems to assert that complete alienation could, in fact, exacerbate tensions and limit channels for constructive dialogue. It's about strategic balance.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It definitely makes you reflect on the importance of having a flexible crisis management approach, one that doesn't box the world into rigid camps, right?
Absolutely. And that's the takeaway here. The idea is to avoid strategic pitfalls by keeping options open and engaging with potential mediators, even if conventional wisdom dictates a strict policy. It's like, sometimes you need to break free from the echo chamber of hostile narratives.
I agree. Truly a compelling perspective, one that challenges both our assumptions and, frankly, the traditional geopolitical mindset.
Indeed, it's a robust reminder that in international relations, as in life, sometimes the greatest strategic move is to keep the door open rather than shutting it completely.
Exactly. I mean, that's a lesson worth pondering. Well said. This discussion definitely leaves us with much to think about regarding how we label and engage with our global counterparts.
Absolutely. Thanks for the engaging chat on this strategic conundrum. Until next time, keep questioning and exploring these nuanced debates.